so much for, thank you, Manny, for getting us kicked off here. It looks like we had a couple of different links going on, but thanks so much to everybody for joining our call today. We really want to just hold space. We are in the part 2, really, of our PB application, and instead of a full-on, full-fledged agenda, we wanted to just create space for you all to ask questions or share information with one another. So that's going to be our flow today. So my name is Jamila Jordan. I'm the county's equity director. I'm going to go around the horn here and just invite folks to introduce themselves, and then we can jump into any questions, comments, or ideas that folks have. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Manny.
Hi, everybody. I'm Manny Benitez. I'm the Administrative Services Associate with the Office of Equity, and I will pass it on to Melissa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa James, and I am a part of the grant writing team for the PB Marin project, and pass it over to Gary.
Hey, everybody. My name is Gary Besser. I'm a project manager with the Marin County Office of Equity. Oh, and I'll pass it over to Shane.
Hey, everybody. I'm Shane Kinlock, and I'm one of the grant writers with the PB initiative. Nice to meet you all. And I'm going to kick it to Erica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica McWhorter. I'm also one of the grant writers on the project. I'll turn it over to Daniel.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Also one of the grant writers on this project with Marin. And I'll pass this to Andrea. Uh-oh, maybe it's just me. I can't hear you.
You might be muted, Andrea. We can't quite hear you. Not yet. Not yet. Well, while we let, oh, there you are. Okay.
Am I here? Oh, sorry. My headphones don't work. I'm Andrea Lloyd with Enriching Lives Through Music. We're an after-school music program participating in the budget application.
Welcome. Welcome. Let's go ahead and kick it over to Maria.
Hello, my name is Maria Rodriguez. I'm with the Marin Aging and Disability Institute, and very excited to be with all you talking about phase 2 of the grant program.
Great. And let's just go around the horn here. Maybe Jess, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Jessica Hansen. I'm Chief Development Officer at Ritter Center, and we provide services for individuals experiencing homelessness, as well as a lot of wraparound services for people experiencing economic insecurity.
Welcome. Let's go ahead and go to Claudine.
Okay, there I'm unmuted now. My name is Claudine Alameda. I am the president of Rise Up 94965 Foundation in Marin City, Sausalito, California. And I'll hand it over to, oh goodness, who hasn't gone? The Child Unique.
Hi, I cannot, there, I think my video's on. Hi, my name is Cindy Acker, and I am with a project called Words That Made the Difference, Brown versus the Board of Education. It is a play that we have made live to teach people about the history of segregation.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Anybody else hasn't gone yet? Let's maybe Carol or Jacqueline.
Yeah, hi, I'm Carol Alter, and I'm here in San Geronimo Valley in Marin. And I work with a senior group, and we're looking to hopefully develop some housing here. Very, needed housing everywhere, I guess, here too. Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for joining. Jacqueline, have you had a chance to go? I'm not sure if you.
Thank you very much. I'm Jacqueline Ehrenberg. I am the grant writer for the Marin County Community Development Corporation and does workforce development in Marin County.
All right, welcome. So, and I see Elijah just popped on. Elijah, hey, we're just doing quick introductions. So we're gonna jump on and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elijah Merman, and I am one of the grant writers with the County of Marin. Nice to meet all of you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Elijah. So anybody else that we missing? Mary, did you have a chance to go? Mary's kind of our special guest here today, actually.
Well, yes, my name is Mary O'Mara, and I'm the executive director and co-founder of Marin Link. We do fiscal sponsorship, and this is our 20th year of supporting projects in Marin County and beyond. So I'm excited to be here too.
Well, welcome everybody. We are so excited to have you all here today. Thank you so much for making time. We have just a high-level overview of our process that we want to share with you. But really, this is a time and space for you all to ask questions and get those questions answered. And so it's going to differ a little bit from our previous work sessions because now we're really in stage 2 of the application process. And I'm excited to share that we've gotten over 140 applications for our PB process so far. Yeah, thank you, Erica. I feel the love. You know, so this is major, and you all are a part of this really exciting and innovative process that we have launched here in the County of Marin. So with that, I want to just share a couple of quick slides, and then I'm going to just turn it open, leave it open for the group to talk, and we can just discuss amongst ourselves. So with that, let me go ahead. And then I also want to make sure that I give Mary some time to just share a little bit about her role as the fiscal sponsor. So with that, here we go. So everyone, hopefully you all can see this slide here. So we are in the midst of really phase 2 of our PB process, and that's where you see the red box around. And we went out into community and asked them questions around how would they want to spend this $2.5 million to advance equity in their communities, right? And from there, we asked them to not only just share ideas, but to actually develop an application, a proposal as to how they would want to spend this money, right? And so that's where we are right now in our process. And so, as I mentioned, we went out and we said, how would you want to spend this money? What comes up for you in terms of what do you think is deeply resonant or important in your community around how to advance racial equity, how to advance community equity in Marin County? And so that's what the question is that we asked folks. And we heard so many different things. We went out to community centers, to libraries, to different events that we held. This is a shot from one of the events that we put on recently, and just asked that very question of how would you use this money? And we also went online and we said, maybe from the comfort of your home, sometimes things come to you if you're at home or you're going, from the bus to your house or what have you. How would you use this money? And so fantastically, we heard so many things from people. We heard a lot around inclusion and belonging. We heard a lot about identity and what it means to feel seen within your neighborhood. We heard a lot around youth programming, right? We heard a lot around economic opportunity and small businesses being fostered. So there were so many things that came up. And then not only that, everybody, but we also were able to see how many folks liked those ideas. So very much like Facebook, it's like, you have this idea, but how many people are supportive of it, right? And so we got over 2,000 likes of these various ideas that were shared. And so from there, some examples include, health centers were really important to folks. Botanical conservancies were important. Housing, how do we encourage people to not only have a home, to buy a home, but to stay in their homes? How do we do that, right? Art programming for folks in Marin City, for example, training for captains in disaster preparedness units, right? So there's a whole broad swath swath of what we heard from folks around what's important to them and how they would spend this money. And so from there, as I mentioned, it's now, let's turn these ideas into actual grant applications. Let's make this real. Let's give you funding and sources to bring these ideas to life. And so we have grants of $10,000 to $250,000 available. And what's really important is that folks have a fiscal sponsor, or you be a 501c3. And that's just because we can't just give money directly to, say, Elijah, for example. I can't just give Elijah $250,000, but instead, having that representation as a fiscal sponsor or a 501c3 is one way for us to nurture this relationship. And so I'm really excited to have Mary on the line here, because Mary is representing Marin Link. And Mary, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do want to just give you some time to share a little bit about Marin Link and about your role as a fiscal sponsor.
Sure. So what fiscal sponsorship is, it's a contractual relationship between us, we're a 501c3, and your project. So I'm really excited to hear about all these new projects. This makes my heart sing. I love this. This is my work. So when I hear all this energy and this creativity, it just makes me so happy. So what we do is we have an application process. You can get it online, or if you contact me directly, we can engage in conversation about your project. And so you fill out the application. I'm waiving the $150 fee that we usually charge for anyone that's applying for this program money. So just be sure you note that on the application. And then we review your contract, your application, and we determine whether or not it has a community benefit. Well, I don't think we have to worry about that with you. All of you are definitely tapped into your communities, and you have these amazing, social programs and creative programs. So it's exciting for us to see, how we can support you. And the way that we get paid is we get paid a percentage of the monies that you bring in. How do we determine that money? Well, some organizations, fiscal sponsors, have a set fee. We don't have a set fee because we really look at the scope of your project. We charge based on anywhere from 5% to 15%. It has to do with the amount of reporting that we need to do. And so we feel like that's the fairest way for us to help you keep as much money as you can in your project and not have a set fee. So we review that with you, and we determine that with you, and also the scope of work that we need to do for the reporting. So I don't know what else you may want to know, and I'll just take your questions if you have questions.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Mary. And so we're excited to have a partner such as Marin Link on board to help bring these projects to life. And so we're going to open it up to the group in just a minute to invite your comments or questions around that. But just know, and Mary, maybe if you have a moment, if you can just pop in the chat here, your contact information and how folks can reach out to you, that'd be great. So everybody, that's really where we are. And I'm going to go through a couple of more quick slides, and then we can just open it up for everybody here. So we also have a team of grant writers, many of which are on the call here today, including Erica, Melissa, Elijah, Shane, and others here. Daniel here is as well. So we have a full team of grant writers to help folks actually apply for this money. So if you need that assistance, we want you to know that that's what we are all about here in this project, and this process is making sure folks know that we are not only putting this out for people, but actually supporting folks in developing really clear and compelling applications. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward here. So we have actually, as I mentioned at the top of the call, we have over 140 applications. And I'm just, can we just get a collective like clap? Like that is just so beautiful that folks are excited about this work. And from there, everybody, our stage 2 is going to be due on May 31st. So that's a really important time for you all to be aware of, is that that's when the stage 2 application is due. And that one is a little bit more detailed. It asks you a little bit more in terms of what you are proposing in your project. And so that's the big timeline for everybody to be aware of on this call here today. We have a fantastic website that's set up as well, which has a ton of great information. If you want to learn more, read more, what have you, you can always reach out to us. But I think that a lot of questions might be answered by just going to the website. So including on the website, we have a bunch of different materials, such as our budget template, our timeline template, and a lot of other resources. So I've gotten a few questions since we announced that folks are moving on to stage 2, gotten a lot of questions. And so I want to make sure that I hold space and time for us to explore those. But we're going to come back to that in just a minute. And then after that, everybody, we're going to move on to really the voting stage, right? So this is a document that you see on the screen around how does this whole process work? And so this is very much included in our PB rulebook. And so that's something else for you all to look at if you have some more specific questions about how does this process flow. Today is an opportunity for us to do that, but if you wanted more information after this call, you can look at the PB rulebook to learn more. So we have a PB committee that's put together, and they are community members very much like yourselves who are helping us review and vet what it is that we're receiving. You know, what are these proposals? What are these applications looking like? And so working very closely with community members to help us in this process. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So, you know, basically after we get all of these applications from stage 2, right? So as I mentioned, we have about 140 that have come in, and, you know, we might get, say, 100 that are full-fledged stage 2 proposals. And from there, everybody, community members will vote on how they want to spend this $2.5 million. And so this is probably the most exciting part of PB for a lot of folks. And so in terms of what gets on the ballot, everyone, we're looking at geography. So we're focusing in on communities that are about 70 or below on the Healthy Places Index. And that includes communities such as the Canal, Marin City, parts of Novato, parts of San Rafael, and parts of West Marin as well. So that's a big part of what we're looking at, and we'll be giving additional points or scoring to those communities, right? So geography is a big part of what we're focusing on in PB, because we want to focus the money on where the needs are the greatest, right? And so from there, we're also looking at how much money is being requested, right? So we have these different grant tiers that you see on the screen here in terms of how we will allocate the dollars, and also categories, right? So we're looking at not just projects that include, for example, parks and recreation, which is so important, but also, you know, small business development, housing, economic opportunity, youth programming. So there's a whole variety of things that we're looking at in terms of what will actually get on the ballot. And everyone can vote, right? So people who live, work, own a business, or go to school in Marin County, you just have to be at least 14 years or older in order to vote. And we're going to be out not only online, but also in community. We want to make sure that we are doing our best to target folks and make sure they know this process is happening, one, but that they have a real stake in deciding how this money should be spent. So we'll be online, but also very much in community, in person. And from there, the money will be spent, you know, based on what community members decide. They will basically, you know, determine how this money should be used. And so after that, everybody, we will focus on implementing the projects. And so we plan to provide not only money to get this off the ground, but also to implement, right? And so I think that's a really important thing for all of you on this call to be thinking about is, you know, what support do you need in order to really make this real? Because we're focused so much on equitable outcomes, right? And so with that, I'm gonna pause here and just see if you all have any questions for us. We have a full team of folks on the line here, so I want to invite my colleagues to jump in, but just want to open it up. Any questions, comments, ideas from the group? And if not, we can all go to lunch. Yeah, Claudine.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you, Claudine. Yes. Oh, wait, no, not you, girl, but yeah.
Oh, hi, sorry about that. So yes, so I did have a question about the voting. Is it purely the voting that will determine the final award? And I think I was not at the prior meeting, but one of my colleagues had been at one of the prior meetings, and I think what came up was sort of the thought about equity in voting, you know, where some of us come from very small communities like Marin City, where we just the population, you know, alone is very small compared to some of the other geographical areas. How are we addressing that? And back to my question, is it purely by vote alone, or will the committee still have some way to influence or think about what the final outcome is? And maybe a separate question is question about the structure of our budgets and whether the committee might say to us, well, what we recommend is actually paring down your budget to these line items, for example. You know, where would that come into play if it does come into play? So two different questions, but yeah, first and foremost, I think is the more important one.
Yeah, great questions, Claudine. Thank you so much for lifting those up. So I think to tackle the first part is, you know, in terms of the voting, which I know a lot of people have questions about, right? How is this really going to work? How is it going to play out? And so a large, you know, I would say the word to use is the onus is on not only our team as the Office of Equity, but also on this community committee that we put together. And they're going to help us really whittle down how many projects get on the ballot, right? And so from there, we have a full-on scoring rubric and evaluation tool that we're using. We're calling it a scorecard to help us really understand how do these projects relate in terms of achieving equitable outcomes, right? So that's going to be a big part of what we're looking at in order for you all to actually get on the ballot, right? And from there, to your point, Claudine, from there, it's up to community members to decide how they want to, what they think is deeply resonant, right? What they think is important. So after that, it's like, we don't have any ownership, or, you know, it's kind of like at that point, they will decide how they want this money to be spent, right? And so part of it is really important for you all to make sure that you're galvanizing and mobilizing community members to understand what your project is all about and to really understand what the needs are around it. How is this going to benefit them? So at a certain point, it's kind of like it's out of our hands, so to speak, and people are just going to decide what they think is most important. And I think that's a whole part of PB, is like it's participatory, so they are deciding, right? So I think that was the first part of your question, and I want to just have you remind us again, the whole group here, around the second part of
Yes, and the second part was regarding whether when in stage 2 we submit the budget, and we'll have, you know, many specific line items for that budget. At any point, will the committee say to us, well, this is a great project, but we feel that, you know, it would behoove you to keep this part of the scope of what you have outlined versus and perhaps cut out these parts so that, you know, maybe honing in and making that budget smaller, for example. Would that ever come into play? I guess maybe it might come into play if we use some of the grant writer, you know, if we reach out to the grant writers and ask for their help and their, you know, expertise. Is that the only time where it could come into play?
Great question. Great question. So yes, yes, and yes. One of the things is that along the journey of developing these applications, our team of grant writers will help you better understand how to best present your project and where you might want to scale up or scale down, right? So that's something that they can assist you with. We also, you know, should we find that we get to a place where we have, you know, all these fantastic projects, and really and truly, everybody, I want you all to know we've gotten a lot of fantastic projects, right? And so these applications are so well thought out and very much aligned with what our goals are as the Office of Equity. And so how can we make sure that we're spreading the money around is something that we'll be thinking more specifically about as we get these final stage 2 applications. So to answer your question, Claudine, yes, we will reach out to you and say, hey, you know, maybe you might want to partner with organization X, right, in order for you all to be funded. Or maybe you want to think about the scale and scope of your project in a slightly different way. And so we will be reaching out to folks, and that's up to you to decide if you want to do that. But yes, is the answer to the question.
Thank you.
I hope that answered what you were asking. Yeah. I see some other hands here. The Child Unique. I love this name.
I wanted to ask 2 questions and 1 comment. If you did not apply for the first application, can you still apply for the second application? And was childcare at all a priority that came up? And my comment is that it is incredible that you have grant writers to support people. I think that is just amazing.
Right on. Yeah, thank you so much. So, you know, the first answer is we had that deadline of May 10th for the first stage application, right? And so we're going to hold to that. So if folks did not make it in that cycle, that's okay. But, you know, maybe we would have another cycle in the next year or so. But at this point, because we've gotten 140 applications, you know, people are ready to go, so to speak. And so we want to honor what the timeline was for those individuals. So we're going to hold firm to that and just stick to that, basically. So we're not going to extend the deadline for stage 1. And then in terms of stage 2, and you mentioned our grant writing team, we have this fantastic group of folks here, and they're all on the line. So if people do need support and assistance, let us know. So we just have a really quick and easy intake form that we're doing. And so I'm going to ask my colleague, Manny, if you wouldn't mind, Manny, to pop that in the chat. But if you would like to have some support from them, then please do reach out and we can just very quickly get you connected. So I hope that answered your question. Was there something else that I didn't address? I just want to make sure.
I was childcare came up as a priority.
Oh, childcare. Yes. Thank you for that. So absolutely. So, you know, and I kind of want to go to, and give me a minute here just to pull it up. But, you know, what we did is we put together this online tool for folks to share their ideas about what they want to spend this money on. And a lot of what we heard was around childcare, right? And so I'm going to just scroll over here and just pull this up for us so that you all can see the variety of ideas that were shared. But absolutely, that was one of the things that came up, you know, with a lot of energy and urgency. So let me just pull this up for everybody. Here we go.
Oh, we're seeing the picture.
Yeah, I'm gonna fast forward that. Thank you, Manny. Here we go. So this is our online tool, and we'll pop this in the chat as well. So we had this tool available in not only Spanish, Vietnamese, but also in English as well. And it was an opportunity for folks to share what were their ideas of how they would want to spend this money. And so as you can see on the right here, everybody, if you're scrolling with me, you can see there was such a variety of ideas, including community preparedness, Creciendo Juntos, Growing Together, Marin Humane, Canal FC, addressing food and nutrition, Coast Miwok Dancer Monument, for example, was mentioned. And to your point, Child Unique, and I'm sorry, I don't know your official name. Cindy. Okay, yeah, thank you. So yeah, there was a lot around childcare too that is mentioned here. So you all, I really want to encourage you to take a look at this when you have a moment, and just to see, we hear topics around reparations, around housing for teachers, for example, around youth mental health services, youth programming, a lot around youth programming. So very much related to or tangential to this idea and topic around child care and caring for not only our children, but also the folks who are caring for the children. So that is a tool for you all to take a look at. And it gives you a chance, and I just want to click on one button, for example, it will actually locate where in particular, where they think it should happen, right? And so if you see here, you can kind of zone in, and this is where this person, for example, thought that this should be located, and folks were able to like or comment on this particular idea that was lifted up. So I just want to share that with you all so you can know kind of the breadth and depth of what was mentioned. But yeah, most definitely, Cindy, childcare, and perhaps another idea is supporting folks who provide childcare was really important.
Yeah, well, I will look out in a year or so and hopefully we'll be able to become a part of this.
Right on. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Other questions from the group here. I'm looking around the Zoom room here. Jess, Andrea, Carol, any other thoughts, questions, ideas? Yeah, Maria, go for it.
I'm curious about the budget. In the first meeting, you discussed that the number of grants that would be awarded would depend on how many people are asking for what degree of money. If you get a bunch of grants requesting 250,000, clearly there would be a lot less grants that would be awarded. Based on the proposals you've received so far, what do you think will be the final outcome in terms of how many grants might be awarded or sent to the voting phase of this?
Yes, great question.
And number two, sorry, also, is there a prioritization based on the level of granting that you're requesting? The amount of money you're requesting for the program?
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria, for lifting this up for our community here. So one thing to mention is the ballot will be informed by a lot of different factors, right? So one of them is by community, by geography. And so we want to make sure that we're spreading this money across, because there is a finite limit, right? There's $2.5 million that's available. And so we want to make sure that we're spreading it across our communities that have the greatest disparities. So that, I think, is the biggest factor in terms of how the ballot will be shaped and formed. In addition to that, it's also around project category, as I mentioned. And so thinking about, for example, we've gotten a lot around nature, or a lot around parks and recreation. And that is super important. But we also want to encourage folks to, we want to use this money for economic development, for example, or for education. So it'll be around project category as well in terms of how we spread the money around. So those are, I would say, the two biggest factors, Maria, in terms of how things will get on the ballot, right? It's kind of category, geography, in addition to how much money is being requested, right? And so we have these different tiers. And so, for example, it's 10,000 to say 25,000, and then it's 26 to say 75,000. So we want to make sure that we are encouraging folks to apply for projects that are quote unquote big and small. And so I think those are all the really important factors to think about in terms of what gets on the ballot, right? And then the second part of your question, can you just remind us of that?
It was more around, does it affect whether your grant is selected? Is the amount of money you're requesting, will it affect your ability to get selected, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, no, great question. And I think it ties into what I was mentioning a moment ago around the grant tiers. And so it does tie into, we want to make sure that we are spreading this money around to the best way that we can. And so there might be a call that we make to you, for example, Maria, and say, hey, could you reimagine this project at a slightly different level of funding, for example? And would you be open to that, right? So we are going to be working with our grantee applications with all of you to make sure that we're doing this in the most equity-centered way as possible. And so yes is the answer to the question, is that we will review your application and reach out if we have questions around how might we reimagine this process or project in order to make sure that we're spreading it around the best way we can.
I love that you have the opportunity to have some feedback.
The feedback, and you know what, everybody, I just want to say to you all, and first of all, I so appreciate you all taking the time to be with us. But we also are learning along the way. And so I appreciate the questions, and we appreciate this feedback that we're getting, because it's going to only help us for cycle 2. So this is the first time that we're doing this here in Marin County. And all these questions are just really very valuable for how we reimagine what could be possible in terms of grant making. So thank you so much. Anybody else? Any other feedback or questions or ideas? I'm gonna give Mary some space too. Mary, any other feedback you want to share with the folks?
Well, if you are looking for a fiscal sponsor, then the best thing you can do is to fill out the application so that we can start to work together, and we can answer questions for you as they come up about how that works for you and how the relationship works ongoing. So I would suggest that as a step. If you list our name on your application, then you should, on your grant request, you should have an application on file with us. So that's the process. Don't wait till you get the grant. If you're going to be applying on the grant, then you should have you should apply with us, in advance of getting the money. So, and hopefully you'll all get something. So if you need fiscal sponsorship, please reach out.
Right on. Thank you. Yes, let's go to Claudine.
Hi, sorry to come back a second time here. I had a further question on the voting, and I don't know if I missed this in the rule book, but is the voting simply one overall vote, that of a project, or are we voting per tier where we'll have, well, these are all the selections for stage 2, that passed stage 2 for tier 1. What is your vote? Tier 2, what is your vote? Tier 3. Or is there maybe going to be like here's my first choice, here's my second choice, here's my third choice, that sort of, like, what is the structure of the voting? that way.
Great question, Claudine. Thank you so much. So what we are planning to do is to have a county-wide ballot. So it's not necessarily by community, but it's across the whole county of Marin, right? And from there, we likely will invite folks to identify maybe their top 3 to 5 projects that they think are the most important for them, right? And so most important in terms of what's going to transform their community, what's going to advance equity in their neighborhood. And so that's what's going to be decided on by community members. So it'll be ideally the top 3 to 5 or so. And this is, I say or so because we don't know how many projects we'll get at the end of the day, but at this point we're anticipating, a good amount, like maybe 100 some odd projects coming on. And then from there, we would whittle it down to maybe 20 or so that get on the ballot. And we really want to invite you all to share, why is this project important for the community to vote on? Like if you only had 3 to 5 choices out of 20, what would make your project really resonant? What would make it really important for me, so hypothetically? And so we want to give folks a chance and an opportunity to really share that information with the community. So there'll be a community booklet that we'll produce. We'll have flyers that we'll produce. We also were thinking about some digital forms of communication as well. So we're going to ask our folks who get on the ballot to to share just a brief, maybe 1 to 2 minute video as to why, Claudine, for example, why is this project important? And Claudine, I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing, what are you thinking about proposing? What's your project?
Yes, so our project is about basically growing leaders through public school gardens in Marin City, but also having equity and access for all through gardens. And not only are we focusing on Marin City, Sausalito School District, but also trying to reach across to our neighbors in Mill Valley and expand our community. We've been very siloed, I think, historically, and we want to not only grow our community, but also just open up our gardens, for all, not just our students, but for all ages, all communities, breaking down barriers. But in the end, it's about growing leaders, through our gardens for our kids.
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much. Does anybody else want to share what your project idea is? And maybe as you all are thinking about that, I want to just mention to you that we know that every project can't be funded through PB, right? Everything can't be funded through this $2.5 million. And I see you, Jess, I'm gonna come right to you. And so what we're thinking about is, how can we share this information with our other departments, right? How can we share this with our elected officials, with our board of supervisors, so that they know this is a priority for our community members, to have these things not only, thought about, but actually come to life. So with that, Jess, what's your project?
So Ritter Center has been at the same location for over 40 years. And if you know our location on Ritter Street, it's pretty run down and it's a little too small now for the number of clients that we serve and the people from the community who visit our food pantry, for example. It's over 1,800 households a year. So we recently, and finally, after decades of dreaming about this, purchased a building at 800 A Street. And now we just have to raise the funds to renovate it into our health center. And the health center will be able to, it'll allow us to serve more individuals in the community. We will have 6 exam rooms that are standard size versus our tiny little exam rooms in our trailers right now. We'll have a food pantry that's doubled in size, and the entrance to the food pantry will be adjacent to Vivillon's Healthy Aging Campus, which we're already talking about all of the wonderful things that we can do with Vivillon and with the residents there. And it will give us the capacity to start new programs, things that our community has said that they want, so when our clients are coming in for services, if they have a child or a baby who might need some medical attention or even an exam, they have to go to a whole different other organization to do that. But we could add that as an ancillary service. We can add women's health, we could add supportive employment services. And not to say that we would want to necessarily lead in that area, because so many other people are doing that in the community and doing it well. But if we're offering those wraparound services, why not have something in our organization too, so that when people come in, they can access those services as well. So that in whole is a $14.5 million project, but I'm really focusing on raising around $7 million. It's a lot, I know.
Yes, that's a lot, and these are things that we want to have happen, and they take resources. And so what I'm hearing folks say to us and our team as the Office of Equity is that it's about layering these resources, right? It's not all going to be done through PB, but this is one venue to accelerate or expand the impact. So thank you so much, Jess. Anybody else want to share any other questions, feedback, ideas you all have? Erica?
I just wanted to comment on what you said, Jess. Thank you for sharing that. I think one of the things, and I know speaking for myself, some of the other grant writers might have had this similar experience. We've been hearing a lot from applicants about, using funds to add on to existing programs. And one of the things we're recommending is that, and this goes to, I believe, Claudine, it was your question. It could have been someone else's question, but it goes back to, actually it was Maria's question around how to make sure that the budget is clearly reflecting what you want, but also to make sure that your ask is compelling. And so having an overarching, $250,000 will help us get to our goal is nice. But something more compelling could be, what could this $250,000 do specifically, as an example? So like maybe this allows you to build out the exam room that you want, right? And so just being really specific, we're encouraging folks to make sure that your budget is very targeted, especially if you want to use this as a layering mechanism. What could these dollars actually do in the next 2 years, even if you've got a lot more to add on? So I just wanted to share that with you all since you're on the call now. Thanks, Jamila.
Yeah, thank you so much, Erica, for that. Yeah, big love around that. Let's go to Maria.
I just wanted to share our project idea. We specialize in aging and disability, and both the CEO of MADI, Marin Aging and Disability Institute, and myself are very much interested in helping children and families with special needs. And interestingly and sadly, there's a disparity when it comes to race and ethnicity in having proper diagnosis of children early on, which leads to having the right eligibility and access to early intervention and supports by Golden Gate Regional Center and others, and being placed in appropriate settings. And there's a disparity in terms, again, of race on how the children may be disciplined, or which can be aggressive at times, and if they are not properly diagnosed. And there's also, sadly and interestingly, more children that are diverse get diagnosed as having intellectual disabilities or having behavioral problems, and they may be experiencing ADHD, autism, Asperger's, or learning differences. and they need the right interventions in order. If you have early services, it really increases the chance of positive outcomes and being placed in the best educational settings that will help them. So our project is to fund educating both healthcare providers and schools, preschools, daycare centers. A lot of the diagnosis or the first inkling happens at school, even at a preschool, where teachers or aides can notice that there's a difference in style and learning and behavior, attention. And so educating all of those members of the communities in Marin City, and we're looking at Marin City, Canal District, West Marin, and Novato. Additionally, having also parent educational sessions through collaboration with Matrix Parent Network, because parents also need to learn that perhaps this isn't a behavior issue, perhaps the child is struggling with understanding or something else. So that's our proposal, and I know it's very specific and hard to romanticize something as difficult and challenging as that.
No, I think you encapsulated it really well. Thank you for that, Maria. I also just want to hold space for my colleagues. I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking, so I want to invite Manny or Gary to just share any additional feedback to the group or ideas, if you have any.
Just feel like there's been a lot of enthusiasm around the grant applications, as we shared earlier. 140, that was huge. I think it was just amazing to see how many came in just the last week. I think in the last week alone, it was like 65 that came in. So I personally it blew me away. So just wanted to share that.
I think I just want to say that, one of the things I was amazed in looking at the data from the ideas that came in is how many folks in a community, any given community, all kind of have the same idea about what would be good for the community. So I'd really encourage you to, reach out to your neighbors, to your partners, to folks in the community. If you serve clients, the people that you serve, and build some coalition around your ideas. I think that the more of us there are, the more powerful we are. So
Well said. Yeah, thank you so much, team. So everybody, I think we're bumping up against our time here.
There's
but
a question that came in chat.
Oh,
Jamila.
something came in? Oh, let me see.
Andrea is asking, you mentioned applying for specific programming, but we'd like to apply as general support for our small program. Can you speak to how to navigate that?
Yes, let me read this question. So yeah, thank you so much, Andre. And I want to invite you to come off mute, Andre, if you don't mind, and just share a little bit more.
Sure. So Elements is a music program. We serve about 150, 160 kids in the canal. So we fit into a lot of those needs that the community has communicated. But I get nervous about kind of like being very specific to a part of our program, whereas, and saying, we want this amount of money for this specific program, as opposed to opening up to general support, which is the way we approach most of our grants. The program in itself is very specific and, in my opinion, compelling. So I just want to make sure, and we talked a little bit with Daniel about this, but I just, in this open forum, I thought it would be a good way to address that specific ask versus general support.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that we are developing a deeper appreciation around is that, there may be some specific projects, right? But there's also what you need to keep the lights on, and there's what you need to just do your general business. And so in this particular cycle of PB, we're really focused on what can yield the highest impact, what can yield the most equitable outcomes. And that might be, in your case, Andrea, is, you know, and you didn't give us a particular example, but it might be paying for, you know, your team, you know, paying for a new team member, for example, or it might be paying for your facility, right? And so those are things that we're thinking more and more about as it relates to general versus very specific and targeted equitable outcomes. But in this cycle, I do want to be really clear and transparent and say that we're focused on projects that you know that you all will tell us are yielding the highest result, right? And so it might not be around paying for your overhead or paying for your admin, for example. So I think that's something for you all to keep in mind in terms of what this scoring round will be like. And I see a hand from Erica to add more detail to that.
Yeah, and to what Jamila was saying, and Daniel may have covered this with you, but for everyone else's benefit, one of the things that is always useful is if you have data or numbers that can support. So for instance, if you can tell us how much, and by us, I mean the community, how many persons you impact per year based on your annual, based on donations or based on a certain amount of funding. Perhaps there's other data points you can flag, and those are better ways to really get to what Jamila was talking about around, what kind of impact are you having? So if you can make that persuasive case using your data, this amount of money could help us continue to impact these amount of people, or the people who look or sound or act like this, or with this particular program that reaches X, Y, and Z people over X, Y, and Z amount of time. And that's a lot more persuasive than, we need money to keep the lights on, for instance.
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Erica. Andrea, did that get to your question?
Yeah. I mean, we can go either way. It's good to hear, kind of, obviously evidence-based stories are probably where we need to focus on.
I see in the chat here we have from Claudine. And Claudine, I want to invite you to come off mute and share if you're still here with us.
Yeah. Hi, it's me again. So yes, mine was a very specific question on the project timeline template, and it had only 4 lines for goals per phase 1, 2, 3, 4. And I saw that the lines were locked, and I was trying to add a 5th goal, for example, for one of the phases. And I couldn't figure out how to unlock it. I think maybe you did that by design. So my question was, did you do that by design? You want people to just pick the top 4 goals per phase, even though we might have, a couple more. Was that by design, or can we actually add another line?
Great question. I'm going to invite my colleague Gary to chime in on this, but we did want to make sure that we understood kind of your top level priorities for your process, for your project, right? And so 4 or 5 is getting into that's a lot. And so what would you say are your top 3, your top 4? And so I see Gary just put in the chat here that there's a separate page. Gary, do you want to come off mute and speak to this?
Yeah. So, I mean, ideally, we're going to be reviewing hundreds of applications. And so, your top 5 with the most oomph are ideal. But I would encourage you to just, you're going to be sending all of your documents in through the upload attachments there. Just include a separate Word document or Google page if you need more space.
If we want to provide more than what is allotted in the template, a fuller picture or whatever, then we can include it. But
correct. Yeah. That being said,
on the 4,
I would really encourage you on the forms that you were provided, really put the stuff with wow factor. You know what I mean?
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Great question, Claudine. So everybody, I just want to, as we wrap it up here today, just share that we are available to answer additional questions. As you see here today, we have our full-fledged team of grant writers as well who are available to support you in developing and refining your proposal, your application. And so, take advantage of that if that's something that would be valuable to you. And with that, I just want to wrap us up here. And, May 31st is what we're looking at as our final timeline to get these in. And so I hope that this call has been helpful to you all in helping you better understand what we're looking for and how you can be most successful. So anything else folks want to share before we sign off? Mary, I'm going to go to you. Go for it, Mary.
Okay, well, again, if you need a fiscal sponsor, or even if you just want to talk about what fiscal sponsorship is so that you get a clearer idea of it, please go to our site, contact me. I put my phone number up there, my cell number, my email address. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So please reach out. No question is too small.
Right on. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. Take good care, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.